Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we're going to be ranking all of the new makeup I tried in the month of April. So in April, as we know, we had the Sephora savings event, so I did purchase quite a bit, but somehow my list is smaller than March, which is a good sign. However, I will say there are some products that I tried very recently that are not going to make it into this video because I haven't used them enough to get my final thoughts. So let's just hop right into it. And I kind of feel bad because my bottom two slots are toward the same brand that never falls in this bottom slot, but coming in at number 15 is from Hourglass, and this is their Unlocked Matte Lipstick. I have the shade Tulip. And this is such a pretty shade, but first of all, when I open it up and I try to put this on, it feels like it's wobbly in the tube. It doesn't look like it's broken. I did roll it all the way up to check, but it feels like it's loose in the tube. So it feels like I'm going to break it very easily, and I just don't expect that from a very expensive lipstick. Even the component doesn't feel that luxe. It is, I believe, a $50 lipstick. Canadian. So I do expect better things. This shade is very pretty, but this is also incredibly dry. When I put this on, I knew this was a matte formula, but this enhances every single line in my lips and just zaps any moisture out of them. So I don't love that, unfortunately. This is probably one of the more disappointing lipsticks I've tried in a while, which again is really hard to say, especially about Hourglass, because typically their products are never in the bottom. But to keep it going, coming in number 14 is also from Hourglass, and this is their Vanish Airbrushed Pressed Powder. So I don't think this is a terrible product. I think that this is one that is just not meant for dry skin, and that's okay. What's not okay is the price point of this. So this retails for, I believe, $54 US, 73 Canadian. It's bananas, but I thought Hourglass has never ever done me wrong in the complexion department until it came to this. I don't love it. When I put it on the skin to set, I just find it looks way too dry. And I had some of you tell me in the comments to try it as a touch-up powder, and it definitely works that way. It does definitely work better that way for me personally, and that's probably how I'm going to continue to use it. But I just don't think $73 is a fair price point for a touch-up powder. I will either use this as a touch-up because it does work quite nice for that effect, or I'll use it to kind of set my eye primer, something like that. I mean, in fairness, this was following the Givenchy powder, which just completely ran away with my heart, but I just don't think this is meant to set dry skin. I think if you have normal to oily skin type, I think you'll really like this, but if you do have dry skin like I do, perhaps it's not ideal. Coming in at number 13 is from Rare Beauty, and this is their powder blush in the shade Cheer. So I do like this. I think it's very pretty, but it is very glowy. It just has so much more glow than I would personally like. And this is a funny story, but my husband and I were actually out for dinner the other night, and our waitress, who I recognized as a makeup artist in the area, I thought for sure she was wearing the Rare Beauty powder blushes. She was actually wearing one of the Charlotte Tilbury Beauty Light ones. So on the cheeks, they look pretty similar, and she said that herself. So I found that interesting. But I do find these to be just too glowy for my own personal taste. If your skin has a lot of texture that maybe you don't want to enhance, I would definitely skip these. I've got a lot of spots that I want to cover up and go away, and I just don't want to enhance them with something this glowy. I think that this can be very pretty. Again, if you have flawless skin, I think this is pretty. I think this is ideal as more of a blush topper as opposed to a blush on its own, just because it does have such a glow. I do think this can give such a beautiful vibrancy and life to the cheeks. I just think that this is for a very specific audience, and while I will use this and use this as more of a topper, I don't think that I am necessarily the target audience for something this glowy. Coming in at number 13 is actually from Armani, and this is the Luminous Silk bronzing powder. So I was so excited for this. This took me forever to get in because I'm in Canada. So I have the shade 90, and I do have a full review of this one. And this is a really pretty bronzer. The packaging is beautiful, and it's a massive compact, so you get a ton of product in here. This is, again, another very expensive product. I believe this is in the $50 range, US, around 70 Canadian again. So we really get dinged on that exchange rate. But I was so excited for this. I tend to really love a lot of Armani products, and I know I have been getting into a little bit more luxury makeup this year as well, which I'm excited about. But I was very excited to review this, and it's just very orange. Like I said, I have the shade 90. It's the lightest one. I am very fair, and it pulls orange on me, so I don't love that. It does also have glitter particles in here. It is meant to be a more glowy blush, but it does have glitter particles, and you can see them on the skin. So when I initially tried out this bronzer, I went in way too heavy on one side, and I could see the glitter on my cheeks. I was able to correct it by going over it with my beauty sponge, but the glitter remained. And when I've worn it every time after that, I still see those glitters on my face. So I don't love that. I think there are better bronzers out there. I'm going to continue to use this. I do like it. I do think it looks really, really pretty, especially in the middle of summer. I think this will be stunning. But again, much like the Rare Beauty, I think it's for a very specific audience, and I just don't think it's worth the price point, especially given that it's so targeted that way. I am really excited to eventually get my hands on the YSL bronzer. That one's even more expensive than this one, but I've heard amazing things about that one. I'm just waiting for the Canadian availability here, but I will be trying that one out once it's available. Coming in at number 11 is from Makeup Forever, and this is their HD Skin Face Essentials palette. So I actually quite like this. I mean, from this point on, I like everything, but this is what it looks like. Again, this is a very expensive product. I think this is $80 US, 119 Canadian. So very steep. But I do think this is the most versatile of these face palettes that they've come out with, because this one actually has foundation, contour, blush, highlight, whereas some of them are all blush, some of them are all foundation contour shades, whereas this one actually has everything, and I really, really like it. So for foundation, I use these two shades right here, and then I usually just conceal with this one over here. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful palette. You can see I've made quite a mess, and I think it's kind of impossible not to. I meant to clean it up before filming, but I forgot. The blushes, I think, are also stunning. I can get use out of most of them. These bottom two are a little deeper than I would typically like, but I still think they're really, really nice. The formula is beautiful. This actually does wear all day long. I think this works great as a sort of underpainting method if you're into that. I typically don't, but I did try it out for the purposes of this palette, and I think it works great for that. But given that that's not really how I do my makeup, that doesn't really matter to me, but I know it does make a difference to some. I do wish that maybe these pans over here, particularly the foundation pans, were at least replaceable, because if you're using it every day as foundation, you're definitely going to go through that relatively quickly, and then you're just left with maybe some bronzers and some blushes and some highlights, of course. But I do wish that this was perhaps maybe refillable. I think that would have added a bit more value to it. Otherwise, I think this is really nice. I do also tend to prefer powders over creams, so this isn't my most reach for product, but this is a really, really great one for if you're in a hurry just looking to get it done. I honestly think this will be a nice one for me in the winter time, when I do tend to go for a lot more of those cream products. I know a lot of people tend to go for creams in the summer. I go for them in the winter because I am so dry and the cream products feel nice on my skin. So I see myself getting a lot more use out of this in the colder months. And coming in at number 10 is a new to me brand, and this is from Queen Musia. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but they very kindly sent me over 3 of their lipsticks. So their lipsticks come in this really interesting component. It's very, very pretty. It is rubberized. It's got that soft touch matte feel to it. And they sent me 3 shades. I got Madame Bovary, which is a really pretty light pink, Dorian, which is more of a coral, and Becky Sharp, which is actually my favorite. This is more of that pink nude, kind of very Pillow Talk reminiscent. Very, very pretty. And these are a soft matte formula. They are incredibly comfortable and very, very long wearing. And the shades, like I said, are so beautiful and the components are so unique. So they definitely do stand out in my collection. I really, really like these. Like I said, again, they're just very comfortable. I wore these yesterday and they honestly wore so long throughout the day because they're a soft matte. They do dry down and they don't move, but they don't rob your lips of any and all moisture. So I really, really do like this formula. I can't believe I've never heard of this brand. They do also have mascara. I think they don't have a ton of products. It's mostly lip products and a mascara on their website. So I think they're a newer brand, but their lipsticks really are fabulous. And I love how unique the packaging is. And like I said, they are a newer brand, so I will leave them linked down below. Coming in at number 9 is from NYX, and this is their Buttermelt Bronzer. I have the shade Buttercup, which is the lightest one. And this bronzer is interesting because, first of all, I almost didn't buy it because I didn't love the look of the packaging on these for some reason. They're also very, very hard to open. The product itself is incredible. It is definitely very, very buttery, almost kind of like the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer, and just the way it's so smooth, so buttery, it blends so easily on the skin. And I would say it's a more luminous bronzer, but it doesn't have any shimmer particles or anything like that in it like the Armani does. This does have a scent though. It's kind of like the Butter Bronzer from Physicians Formula, but with an extra bit of floral to it. If you hate fragrance, just pass on these. But if fragrance doesn't bother you, this is so nice. The fragrance does go away when it's on the face, but when you open it, it is very strong. What I love about this shade in particular, like I said, this is Buttercup, and what I love about this is that it's a bronzer, but it's got a rosy undertone. And for somebody who is fair, neutral, leaning cool, a bronzer with a cooler undertone is exactly what I'm looking for. So it's got this sort of rosiness to it, so it's never going to pull orange, but it's got this rosiness to it, which is so much more flattering on my skin tone. And it gives me more of that natural sun-kissed kind of a look where it doesn't look like I just put orange bronzer on my face. I just look naturally sun-kissed. I am wearing it today and I love it. I think this is such a wonderful bronzer formula. I did see that they are coming out with blushes in this formula, so I'm curious about that too. I was just absolutely shocked and surprised by these. Again, I didn't love the packaging on this. I just feel like it looks inexpensive. Something about it I just don't love, but the product inside, 100% worth it. Coming in at number 8 is from LYS, and this is the No Limits bronzer stick in the shade Hope. So I do have this formula already, but I have mine in the shade Motivate. So this is in the shade Hope. So it is a bit lighter. They did release a shade extension right before the Sephora Savings event, which I was so excited about. So the shade Motivate is so pretty, but it is a pinch warm for me, whereas Hope is slightly similar. It's not much lighter, but it is a little bit cooler than Motivate. So this works very well for me. And as we know, this bronzer is so incredibly easy to blend and easy to work with. It's very pigmented, but it is so easy to blend and work with that I really, really do love this one. Coming in at number 7 is from Haus Labs. I finally tried their Power Sculpt Velvet Bronzer in the shade Light Level 1. So I actually really like this. And you know what? I don't think I gave it a fair shot when I first tried it out. At first I was just kind of like, yeah, it's fine. It's nothing special. But the tone of this shade has me reaching for this quite frequently. And I don't think I truly appreciated it properly until I compared it next to the Armani. And then I realized that the tone of this is really so neutral that it's actually very flattering on my skin. It's very blendable, it's easy to work with, it's pigmented, but it's not so overly pigmented, kind of like the Armani when I accidentally got too much. This is really, really great bronzer, very easy, very foolproof. I really do like this one. I definitely didn't give this one enough credit when I first tried it, but it does deserve credit. It's fabulous. At number 6, I have from Hourglass the Shape and Sculpt Lip Liner in the shade Tempt 3. So I did pick up their lip liner formula during the sale. And this is a wooden pencil, but it's a very, very creamy wooden pencil. But it is that almost kind of like a gel formula where it lasts a really, really long time. It goes on super creamy. It blends out if you want to fill in the lips a little bit, but it's not so creamy that it slides everywhere. But like I said, it's kind of like that gel formula where you get it on, you blend it out, and then it just dries down and it sticks around all day. This is a really, really amazing lip liner formula. I hate how expensive this is because it's so good, but this really is a fabulous, fabulous formula. And the shade Tempt 3 is like the perfect pinky nude. At number 5 is one I actually tried at the tail end of March. This is from Meritt. This is the Groundwork Blooming Romance palette. I love these palettes from Meritt. At first, I really didn't know what to think of them when she came out with the Defining Neutrals, but I learned to really, really love that. And I really love this too. So this is, like she says, for eyes, brows, face, lips. I'm not going to use any of these in my brows. And honestly, I did try to use one of the pomades on the lips and I just didn't love it. It was just a bit too dry for that purpose. For the eyes and cheeks, stunning. So if you're not familiar with these, in these palettes you do get a pomade and you get a corresponding powder. I do wish the powders were a little bit larger, but I said the same thing about the Defining Neutrals. And you can use this however you want. You can just use the pomades, you can just use the powders, but for optimal performance and pigment payoff, I do recommend going in with the pomades and then setting it with the powder, and you get the absolute optimal performance from these products. So I do love that. I do think that if you are going to use them on the eyes and you want to go in with the pomades first, don't use a primer and set it down with a powder. Use a primer if you want, but don't set it down with the powder because it will interfere with the pomade. Otherwise, this is so, so, so pretty. I love this on the eyes. I love these shades as blushes. This top row, beautiful, beautiful blushes. Love them. I love using the pomade, setting it with the powder, and it locks in my blush all day long. I just think it's absolutely fabulous. I love that these palettes are still so unique as well. I think Meritt is one of the only brands that is just constantly creating innovative products that not everybody else has done. We see brands like Charlotte Tilbury doing her own thing, but then every other brand is copying her. And we keep running into situations like that, whereas Meritt keeps coming out with creative things that you can only get from Meritt, which I think is wonderful. I also had noticed on this one with the Defining Neutrals palette, the magnet keeping the lid closed was rather weak. On this one, that's absolutely not an issue, so definitely upgrades were made to this packaging. It's still very beautiful, very heavy, but definite upgrades were made, and she did a great job. So I highly recommend this as well if you were thinking about it. So coming in at number 4 is from Meritt, and this is their Signature Lip Matte Lipstick in the shade Classic. This is so, so, so pretty. I love this because I love the original Meritt lipstick formula. The cream formula is so beautiful. It feels more like a lip balm on the lips while also giving beautiful color payoff, and it's buildable. It's a stunning, stunning formula. But then they came out with this matte formula, which is much more like a soft matte. It's just very, very comfortable. It doesn't dehydrate the lips, which I love. The shade Classic is, you guessed it, a perfect classic baby pink. It's beautiful, and like I said, it's just so comfortable on the lips, and the matte formula makes it super long wearing, but again, still feels kind of like lip balm almost. Not quite as much as the original formula, but it's just so unbelievably comfortable. The matte formula wears a really long time. The shades are beautiful. Meritt did such a great job with these lipsticks. At number 3 is my current favorite blush. This is from Dior. This is the Rosy Glow blush in the shade Rosewood. So I do have the pink one that has been super, super popular. They did release a shade extension at some point last year, and I've been eyeing up Rosewood ever since. However, I just picked it up during the Sephora savings event, and this is one that I've had in and out of my cart so many times over the last year. I would talk myself out of it. I really, really, really wanted it. So I finally just went for it, and you know what? It's become my favorite blush of the moment. This is so beautiful because something about this formula, while it is a powder, when you blend it on the cheeks, it just sort of looks almost like a cream in the way that it melts into the skin, and it just looks so seamless. It's absolutely stunning. I love this blush so much. There's something about this shade. It looks far more intimidating in the pan than it actually is, but I love this blush so much. And in the top 2 spots, I have eyeshadow palettes, which has been a while since eyeshadow palettes I feel like have taken up my top spots. But coming in at number 2 is from YSL, and this is the Couture Mini Clutch Quad, and I have the shade 100 Stora Dolls. So I had initially been going for Babylon Roses because that's a more pinky one, and I might still get that one at a later date. This quad is so stunning. I love this so much. So the packaging is incomparable. It's definitely in a league of its own. Then you have this one matte brown, you have 2 satins over here, and then you have this beautiful shimmer. And I know it is a boring brown, neutral, cool leaning color story. And you're right about that, but you know what? It's so good. So the mattes and the satins are almost like a cream to powder formula in the way that they blend on the lids. They are just very creamy. They look so beautiful. They're so easy to blend. They take no time at all. My absolute favorite everyday look lately has been going in to this shade all over the lid. I'm not sure if it's coming off on camera how much of this I've used, but going in with this one all over the lid, blended into the crease, topped with that shimmer, and then sometimes adding this one to the inner corner. And it's perfect. I look so pulled together, and it was so easy. This is a very expensive quad, but in my opinion, it's worth it, especially if this is something you're going to use every day. This is well worth it. This is a fabulous formula. I love it so much. I want more colors despite it being very expensive. I want more shades of this because I love this formula. And coming in at the number 1 spot is from Viseart, and this is the Paris Reverie Étendue palette. So this is their newest palette, and looking at it, you might be thinking, Christy, you easily have those shades in your collection already. That's a boring color story, and you're maybe right about that. But if I could create my own eyeshadow palette, it would look something like this, with a row that looked a little bit more like the Mini Biba from Natasha Denona, and a row that probably leans toward the Mini My Dream palette, and we would have my absolute perfect eyeshadow palette. I love this so much. So you do only get one deeper shade. For me, that's not a big deal. This shade for me is more of an eyeliner. Sometimes I'll use it to enhance the outer corner, but I don't always go too deep on that outer corner. All these other shades are so stunning. I love the purples. I love the browns. I love the peachy tones. These are all so pretty. I've done so many looks with this one because I keep reaching for it. One of my favorite looks I've created was this one in the crease, this one in the outer corner and blended into the crease, and this shade all over the lid. One of my absolute favorite looks. I've also created a look using these peachy tones, which I also loved. Yesterday I did this one all over the lid and into the crease, and this one on the lid, and I loved how it turned out. This palette, like I said, if I could create my absolute perfect eyeshadow palette, it would be this. And also because I love how easy their formula is to work with. They're just so soft and blendable, and the formula is just so fabulous. And I also love that I can apply the shimmers with a brush. I don't need to use my fingers. I absolutely can, but I can use a brush and I'm still going to get a great color payoff, and I also don't need to wet the brush if I don't want to. And that is something that I've noticed that is very specific to Viseart's formula. For all of those reasons, this is my number 1 palette, and again, I've just reached for it a ridiculous amount of times this month, so it had to be number 1. But that is it for me today. Let me know down below, what was your favorite product that you tried in the month of April? How did your Sephora hauls turn out? Let me know. I love hearing from you guys so much. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!